The ground shook beneath Lisa Grant's feet as she knelt beside the broken scanning device. Her gloved hands moved quickly over the machine, checking each wire and connection. The device was important for their mission on this frozen planet called Kepler 442c, but it had stopped working an hour ago. Grant, how much longer do you need? Captain John Martinez's voice crackled through her helmet radio. The sound was full of static because of the strange magnetic fields on this world. Lisa looked up at the dark purple sky. Strange clouds moved fast above them, and she could feel the planet getting ready for something bad. Give me 5 more minutes, Captain. I think I can fix this. The other 11 crew members of the UES Frontier stood in a loose circle around the landing site. They all looked nervous. This planet was not a friendly place. The air would kill them in seconds without their suits, and the cold at night could freeze a person solid in minutes. Lisa had been working as the communications expert on the ship for 3 years. She was 28 years old and had always been the quiet one on the team. While others talked and joked, she worked. While others complained about difficult jobs, she found ways to solve problems. The crew respected her skills, but few of them really knew her as a person. The readings are getting worse, called out Dr. Amy Foster, the team's scientist. She held a device that measured ground movement. The seismic activity is increasing fast. We might have a major earthquake coming. Lisa's hands moved faster. The scanning device was almost working again. She had found the problem, a loose connection caused by the constant shaking of the ground. If she could fix it, they would have the data they needed for their research. The planet Kepler 442c was a mystery. From space, it looked like it might support life, but the surface was harsh and dangerous. The research team had been studying it for 2 weeks, trying to understand why the planet seemed to have 2 different faces, one that looked promising and one that was deadly. Grant, we need to move now, Captain Martinez said. His voice was more urgent. The shuttle sensors are picking up massive ground movement heading our way. Lisa almost had the device working. Just a few more seconds. She could see the data starting to come through. Important information about the planet's core and why it was so unstable. Then the world exploded around them. The earthquake hit like a giant hammer striking the planet. The ground split open in long cracks that ran in every direction. Lisa was thrown backward as the scanning device flew from her hands. She rolled and tried to get back on her feet, but the shaking was too strong. "Everyone to the shuttle," Captain Martinez shouted. "Move, move, move!" Lisa could see her teammates running toward their ship. The shuttle sat on a flat area about 200 meters away. It was their only way off this planet, their only way back to the safety of the UES Frontier in orbit above. She tried to follow them, but another massive shake knocked her down again. When she looked up, she saw something that made her heart stop. A huge crack was opening in the ground between her and the shuttle. It was getting wider every second. "Wait," she called into her radio. "I'm cut off. The ground is splitting." Lisa ran along the edge of the growing crack, looking for a way across. The gap was already 10 meters wide and getting bigger. On the other side, she could see her teammates reaching the shuttle. Some of them looked back at her. "Captain, I can't reach the shuttle," she said into her radio. "The crack is too wide." There was silence on the radio for a few seconds. Lisa kept running, trying to find a narrow spot where she might be able to jump across. But the earthquake was getting stronger, not weaker. More cracks appeared in the ground around her. "Grant, where are you exactly?" came the captain's voice. "About 300 meters north of the shuttle. There's a big crack in the ground. I'm trying to find a way around it." Lisa could see the shuttle now. Its engines were starting to warm up, creating heat waves in the cold air. Her teammates were climbing inside quickly. The ship was built to carry 12 people, and she could count 11 figures getting on board. "Captain, the planetary sensors show massive seismic activity building," came the voice of pilot Jake Roberts. "If we don't leave in the next 2 minutes, we might not be able to take off at all." Lisa's heart started beating faster. She ran harder along the crack, but it seemed to go on forever in both directions. The gap was now 20 meters wide, and rocks were falling into it from both sides. "I'm looking for another way," she called. into her radio. "Don't leave without me." But even as she said it, Lisa could see what was happening. The shuttle's engines were getting brighter. The crew was inside, and they were getting ready to launch. "Grant, can you reach any of the emergency supply drops?" Captain Martinez asked. His voice sounded strange, like he was trying to stay calm but was really scared. Lisa knew about the supply drops. They had placed several emergency kits around the area in case something went wrong. Each kit had food, water, and air for about 5 days. But 5 days on this planet would not be enough for a rescue mission to come from Earth. "I can see one of the drops," she said. "It's about 50 meters from my position." The ground shook again, even harder than before. Lisa was thrown to her knees. When she looked up, she saw something that made her stomach feel sick. A huge wall of rock was sliding down from the mountains nearby. It was heading straight for the area between her and the shuttle. "Avalanche!" someone shouted over the radio. Lisa thought it was Dr. Foster. Lisa ran toward the emergency supply drop as fast as she could in her heavy suit. Behind her, she could hear the rumble of millions of tons of rock rolling down the mountain. The sound was so loud, it made her bones shake. She reached the emergency kit and grabbed it just as the avalanche hit the area where she had been standing. The noise was incredible. Rocks the size of cars bounced and rolled everywhere. The air filled with dust and small stones. When the noise stopped, Lisa looked toward where the shuttle had been. She could not see it anymore. There was a wall of rock 50 meters high between her and the landing site. "Captain, are you there?" she called into her radio. "Captain Martinez, please respond." Static filled her helmet speakers. She tried different radio channels, but there was no answer from anyone. Lisa climbed up on some rocks to get a better view. From higher up, she could see over part of the avalanche. In the distance, she could see the shuttle. It was still on the ground, but its engines were glowing bright blue now. They were getting ready for emergency takeoff. "I'm here," she shouted into her radio, even though she knew they probably could not hear her through all the interference. "I'm alive, don't leave me." But as she watched, the shuttle lifted off the ground. It rose slowly at first, then faster as it climbed into the purple sky. Lisa stood on the rocks and watched her only way home disappear into the clouds. The radio in her helmet crackled once, and she heard Captain Martinez's voice, very faint and broken up. "Sorry, Grant. We thought. No choice. Come back." Then there was only silence. Lisa Grant stood alone on a planet that would kill her in days, watching the last trace of the shuttle disappear above the clouds. The emergency kit in her hands contained enough supplies to keep her alive for maybe a week if she was very careful. Around her, the broken ground still shook with small aftershocks. The air was poison, the cold was deadly, and the nearest human beings were now millions of miles away in space. She was completely alone. But Lisa Grant had spent her whole life solving problems that other people said could not be solved. As she looked around at the hostile world that was now her home, she did not panic. Instead, she started thinking. She had 1 week of supplies and a planet full of dangers. But she also had her training, her intelligence, and something her crewmates had never understood about her. She never gave up. Lisa looked at the emergency kit, then at the strange landscape around her. Somewhere in this deadly world, there had to be a way to survive. She just had to find it. The real question was not whether she could survive 1 week. The question was whether she could survive long enough to prove that leaving her behind had been the biggest mistake her crewmates would ever make. Lisa Grant sat on a flat rock and opened the emergency supply kit with shaking hands. The purple sky above was getting darker as the planet's strange day cycle came to an end. She had maybe 2 hours before the deadly cold of night would arrive. Inside the kit, she found exactly what she expected. 3 days of compressed food bars, 2 bottles of water, emergency medicine, a small heating unit, and extra oxygen canisters for her suit. There was also a basic shelter tent, but Lisa knew it would not protect her from the extreme cold that came after dark on this world. She looked around at the landscape. The avalanche had changed everything. Where there used to be flat ground, now there were huge piles of rock and deep cracks in the earth. But Lisa noticed something interesting. Some of the cracks seemed to go down very deep and warm air was coming up from them. Lisa walked carefully to the edge of one large crack. She could feel heat rising from below, even through her thick suit. The crack was about 3 meters wide and seemed to go down into darkness. She dropped a small stone into it and listened. The stone fell for a long time before she heard it hit something far below. Underground caves, she said to herself. The planet must have a geothermal system. This was important. If there were caves below ground, and if those caves were warmed by heat from deep in the planet, they might be the key to her survival. The surface of Kepler 442c was deadly, but underground might be different. Lisa used her suit's light to look into the crack. The walls were smooth rock, and she could see what looked like a wider space about 20 meters down. It would be dangerous to climb down, but staying on the surface would be certain death. She made her decision quickly. Lisa tied her supply kit to her belt and began climbing down into the crack. The rock was rough enough to give her hands and feet good grip, and the warmth got stronger as she went deeper. Halfway down, Lisa heard something that made her stop moving. It was a sound like breathing, but much louder than any human could make. The sound echoed up from somewhere deep in the cave system below her. She waited without moving for several minutes, listening carefully. The breathing sound came again, slow and deep. Whatever was making it was very large and somewhere in the caves beneath her. Lisa had two choices. She could climb back up and try to survive on the surface, which would probably mean dying in a few days, or she could continue down into caves that might be warm enough to keep her alive, but which contained something unknown and possibly dangerous. The decision was easy. Lisa continued climbing down. When she reached the bottom of the crack, Lisa found herself in a large cave chamber. The air was much warmer here, almost comfortable even with her suit's heating system turned low. She could save power this way, which would help her survive longer. The cave was bigger than she had expected. Her light showed walls that curved away into darkness in several directions. The floor was covered with smooth sand and small rocks. Most importantly, she could hear the sound of running water somewhere nearby. Lisa followed the sound of water and found a small stream flowing along one wall of the cave. She tested it carefully with her suit's sensors. The water was clean and safe to drink. This was incredibly good news. Water was the most important thing for survival, and now she had found an unlimited supply. She set up her small shelter tent near the stream and used rocks to build a circle around it. This would help keep any heat from escaping. Then Lisa began to explore the cave system more carefully. The caves went much deeper than she had thought. There were tunnels leading in many directions, and some of them sloped downward toward what must be the planet's interior. The breathing sound she had heard earlier seemed to come from one of the deeper tunnels. As Lisa explored, she found several interesting things. First, there were old marks on some of the cave walls. They looked like they had been made by something sharp, possibly claws. Second, she found areas where the rock had been worn smooth, as if something large had rubbed against it many times. Third, she discovered that some tunnels were much warmer than others, suggesting different levels of geothermal activity. But the most interesting discovery came when Lisa found a section of cave wall that was covered with a strange, glowing substance. The material gave off a soft blue light and felt warm to the touch even through her gloves. When she scraped off a small sample, her suit's sensors showed it contained minerals she had never seen before. Lisa was examining the glowing material when she heard the breathing sound again. This time it was much closer and seemed to be coming from the tunnel directly behind her. She turned off her light immediately and pressed herself against the cave wall. In the darkness, she could hear something large moving through the tunnel. Whatever it was made a scraping sound as it moved, like claws or hard shell against rock. The creature passed by the opening where Lisa was hiding. In the faint glow from the strange mineral on the walls, she could see part of it. What she saw made her heart beat very fast. The thing was huge, at least as long as the shuttle that had left her behind. It moved like some kind of giant worm or snake, but its skin looked hard and segmented like armor. Along its sides, Lisa could see rows of what looked like bioluminescent organs that pulsed with soft light. Most surprisingly, the creature seemed to be injured. Lisa could see dark liquid dripping from several wounds along its body, and it moved slowly, as if it was in pain or very tired. After the creature passed, Lisa waited for a long time before moving. When she was sure it was gone, she followed its trail carefully. The tunnel it had used was much larger than the others, and the walls were worn very smooth from many years of use. The trail led deeper into the cave system, toward areas where the air was even warmer. Lisa followed for about 50 meters before she found something that amazed her. The tunnel opened into a huge underground chamber, much larger than anything she had seen before. The chamber was lit by more of the glowing mineral, which covered large sections of the walls and ceiling. In the center of the space, Lisa could see the creature she had glimpsed earlier. It was resting on what looked like a bed of soft sand and smooth stones. From her hiding place at the entrance to the chamber, Lisa could get a much better look at the being. It was definitely not from Earth. The creature's body was segmented like an insect, but it was covered in what looked like natural armor plating. Its head was large and had several eyes that glowed softly in the dim light. But what caught Lisa's attention most was that the creature was clearly intelligent. Around its resting area, Lisa could see what looked like tools made from stone and metal. There were also arrangements of rocks that seemed too organized to be natural. The creature was also definitely injured. Lisa could see several deep wounds in its armor, and dark liquid continued to drip from them onto the sand below. The being moved carefully as if every motion caused pain. Lisa watched from her hiding spot for over an hour. During that time, she saw the creature do something that confirmed her suspicion about its intelligence. It used one of its tools to scrape some of the glowing mineral from the cave wall, then press the material against one of its wounds. The creature was trying to heal itself. Lisa faced another decision. This being was clearly dangerous because of its size, but it was also hurt and possibly dying. Her scientific training made her curious about it, but her survival instincts told her to stay hidden. As she watched, the creature's movements became slower and more labored. Whatever had injured it had done serious damage. Lisa realized that if she did nothing, this intelligent being would probably die within a few days. But more importantly, Lisa began to understand that this creature knew things about the planet that could help her survive. It had found the warmest areas of the cave system. It knew which minerals were useful. And it had lived here long enough to create tools and a comfortable living space. Lisa made a decision that would change everything. Instead of avoiding the creature, she would try to help it. And maybe, if she was very careful and very lucky, it might help her in return. She spent the rest of that day watching and learning the creature's patterns. Tomorrow, she would try something that no human had ever attempted before. She would try to communicate with an alien being and offer her help to heal its wounds. If it worked, she might gain an ally that could teach her how to not just survive on this hostile world, but how to thrive. If it failed, she would probably become the creature's next meal. But Lisa Grant had always been willing to take calculated risks to solve impossible problems. This was just the biggest problem she had ever faced. Lisa Grant woke up on her second day in the caves feeling more hopeful than she had since being abandoned. The underground chamber was warm and comfortable, and the sound of running water nearby was almost peaceful. But she had not forgotten about the injured creature in the large chamber deeper in the cave system. She had spent most of the night thinking about how to approach the being without getting killed. Lisa knew that most animals, even intelligent ones, would attack if they felt threatened or cornered. But she also knew that injured creatures sometimes accepted help from unexpected sources. Lisa decided to start small. She would leave something useful near the creature's chamber and see how it reacted. If the being showed curiosity rather than aggression, she might try to get closer. She looked through her emergency supplies and found the medical kit. Inside were antiseptic wipes, pain medication, and wound dressing materials. The antiseptic might help prevent infection in the creature's wounds, and the pain medication could make it more comfortable. Lisa also had an idea about the glowing mineral she had seen the creature use on its wounds. If she could combine the fairer mineral with her medical supplies, she might create something even more effective for healing. She spent the morning carefully collecting samples of the glowing mineral from various parts of the cave. The substance was soft enough to scrape off with her knife, and it seemed to have natural healing properties. When Lisa mixed a small amount with water, It created a paste that felt warm and seemed to reduce inflammation. Around midday, Lisa made her way back to the large chamber where the creature rested. She moved very quietly and stayed hidden at the entrance. The being was lying in the same position as before, but its breathing seemed more labored. The wounds were still bleeding, and Lisa could see that infection might be setting in. Lisa placed a small amount of the mineral paste mixed with antiseptic on a flat rock near the entrance to the chamber. Then she retreated to her hiding spot and waited. After about an hour, the creature stirred. It lifted its large head and looked around the chamber. Lisa could see that it had multiple eyes, each one about the size of her fist. The eyes glowed softly and seemed to move independently of each other. The creature's head turned toward the entrance where Lisa was hiding. For a moment she thought it had seen her, but then it looked down at the rock with the medicine paste. The being moved slowly toward the entrance. Lisa could see that walking was difficult for it. Several of its legs seemed to be injured, and it had to drag part of its body across the sand. When the creature reached the rock, it stopped and examined the paste carefully. It used what looked like a tentacle to touch the substance, then brought the tentacle close to several of its eyes. After a few minutes, the creature scooped up some of the paste and applied it to one of its smaller wounds. Lisa watched in amazement as the wound began to close almost immediately. The creature's natural healing abilities, combined with her medical supplies and the mineral paste, worked much better than she had hoped. The being looked around the chamber again, as if searching for whoever had left the medicine. Lisa stayed perfectly still in her hiding spot. After several minutes, the creature returned to its resting area, but it kept looking toward the entrance. Lisa waited until the creature seemed to be sleeping, then she quietly left another, larger amount of the healing paste near the entrance. This time she also left a small piece of her emergency food. She wanted to show that she was not a threat, and that she was willing to share her limited resources. The next morning, Lisa found that both the medicine and the food were gone. In their place, the creature had left something for her. It was a piece of metal, shaped and polished in a way that could only have been made by intelligent hands. The metal was warm to the touch and seemed to glow slightly. Lisa examined the metal carefully with her suit's sensors. It was made of materials she did not recognize, but it seemed to be some kind of tool or possibly a communication device. The object had several smooth surfaces and what looked like controls or buttons. That day, Lisa left more medicine and food near the chamber entrance. She also left a simple tool from her emergency kit, a small flashlight. When she returned the next morning, she found that the creature had left her another object, this one more complex than the first. The new object looked like a small version of the creature's tools, but it was sized for human hands. Lisa realized that the being was not only accepting her help, but it was trying to communicate with her by making tools she could use. Over the next few days, Lisa and the creature developed a routine. Each morning, Lisa would leave medicine, food, and sometimes tools near the chamber entrance. Each evening, she would find that the creature had left something for her in return. The creature's wounds were healing quickly with the help of Lisa's medicine. She could see that it was moving more easily and seemed to be in less pain. The being also seemed to be spending more time near the entrance to its chamber, as if it was hoping to see its mysterious helper. On the 5th day, Lisa decided to take a bigger risk. Instead of leaving the medicine and food at the entrance, she walked partway into the chamber while the creature was resting. She placed the supplies on a rock about 10 meters from the being, then retreated to the entrance but did not hide. The creature woke up while Lisa was still visible. For a few seconds, both of them stared at each other without moving. Lisa could see intelligence in the being's multiple eyes, but she could also see caution and perhaps fear. Lisa slowly raised her hands to show she was not carrying any weapons. Then she pointed to the medicine and food on the rock. The creature watched her movements carefully, its eyes tracking every gesture. After what felt like a very long time, the creature moved slowly toward the supplies. It kept its eyes on Lisa the whole time. When it reached the rock, it picked up the medicine and applied it to one of its wounds. Then it looked back at Lisa and made a sound that was like a low rumble mixed with musical notes. Lisa realized that The creature was trying to communicate with her. She tried to think of how to respond. She pointed to herself and said, "Lisa." Then she pointed to the creature and waited. The being tilted its head as if thinking. Then it made another sound, different from the first. The sound was more complex with multiple tones that seemed to overlap. Lisa tried to repeat the sound, but her human vocal cords could not make the same complex tones. The creature seemed to understand her limitation. It moved to a smooth section of the cave wall and used one of its claws to scratch simple marks in the stone. The marks were not like any language Lisa knew, but they were clearly intentional communication. The creature scratched a series of symbols, then pointed to itself. Then it made the musical sound again. Lisa understood. The creature was telling her its name, or at least what it called itself. She tried to think of a name she could use for it. The musical sound it made reminded her of an echo in a large space. She pointed to the creature and said, "Echo." The being seemed to like this name. It repeated the word echo several times, though it sounded different in its voice. Then it pointed to Lisa and made a questioning sound. Lisa pointed to herself and repeated, "Lisa." Echo tried to say her name, but like Lisa with Echo's name, it could not make the sounds exactly right. But they were communicating. For the first time since being abandoned on this hostile planet, Lisa was not alone. She had found an intelligent being that was willing to work with her instead of against her. Over the following days, Lisa and Echo developed a simple but effective way to communicate. They used scratches on the cave walls for complex ideas, simple gestures for basic needs, and their voices for emotions and immediate responses. Echo began to teach Lisa about the planet. It showed her which minerals were useful for different purposes, where to find clean water in different parts of the cave system, and how to identify areas that were safe from the dangerous weather on the surface. Lisa taught Echo about human, technology, and medicine. She showed it how her tools worked and helped it understand how her healing techniques could be combined with its natural abilities. Most importantly, Lisa learned that Echo was not just any creature. It was one of the last surviving members of an ancient species that had once ruled this planet. Echo's people had built great cities and developed advanced technology, but wars and disasters had destroyed most of their civilization. Echo had been cast out from its remaining people because it was different. It thought differently than the others and wanted to try new ways of solving problems. Its own kind had exiled it to die alone in these caves. Lisa realized that she and Echo were not so different. Both of them had been abandoned by their own people. Both of them had been left to die because others saw them as expendable. But both of them were survivors who refused to give up. As Lisa fell asleep in her small shelter that night, she listened to Echo moving around in its chamber nearby. For the first time in over a week, she did not feel afraid or alone. She had found not just a way to survive on this hostile world, but a partner who understood what it meant to be abandoned and forgotten. Tomorrow, she would begin learning everything. Echo could teach her about this planet, and she would start thinking about how two outcasts could build something better than either of their peoples had ever imagined. Lisa Grant stood in Echo's chamber 3 weeks after their first meeting, watching her alien friend work on something that should have been impossible. Echo was combining pieces of Lisa's broken equipment with strange organic materials that grew naturally in the deeper caves. The result was technology unlike anything humans had ever created. "Show me again how the heating element connects," Lisa said, pointing to a section of what used to be her emergency heating unit. Echo made a series of musical sounds and pointed with one of its smaller tentacles to where a living vine had grown around the metal components. The vine was not just growing on the heating unit, it had somehow merged with it. The biological material was conducting electricity and amplifying the heat output by nearly 3 times. Lisa had watched this process for days and still could not fully understand it. Echo's species had developed technology that worked with living systems instead of against them. Their tools were not just made, they were grown and trained. "Your people must have been amazing," Lisa said as she examined the bio-enhanced heater. Echo's response was a low, sad musical tone. Through their growing language of sounds and gestures, Lisa had learned that Echo's civilization had indeed been incredible. They had built cities that lived and breathed, transportation systems that grew like plants, and healing centers that could repair almost any injury. But they had also been proud and stubborn. When resources became scarce and different groups wanted to solve problems in different ways, they had chosen to fight instead of cooperate. The wars had lasted for generations and destroyed most of their world. Echo had been exiled because it believed their people should work together and try new ideas instead of fighting. The other survivors thought Echo was weak and dangerous to their traditional ways. They had driven it out to die alone. Lisa understood this story very well. Humans also had a history of choosing conflict over cooperation. She had been abandoned by her own crew because they saw her as expendable when things got difficult. But now Lisa and Echo were proving that cooperation could create something better than either of their species had achieved alone. The bio-enhanced heating unit was just one of many projects they had worked on together. Echo had shown Lisa how to modify her environmental suit using organic materials from the caves. The suit now regulated temperature much more efficiently and could repair small damages automatically. Lisa had taught Echo how to use human engineering principles to make its tools more precise and effective. Together, they had created implements that combined the best of both approaches to technology. More importantly, they had discovered that the cave system was much larger and more complex than either of them had first realized. Deep tunnels connected to vast underground chambers, some of which contained the ruins of Echo's ancient civilization. "We need to go deeper today," Lisa said, adjusting her modified suit. "You said there might be intact technology in the old city sections." Echo made an excited series of sounds and moved toward one of the larger tunnels. Over the past week, they had been exploring deeper into the cave system, looking for remnants of Echo's people's advanced technology. The journey to the deeper levels took several hours. Lisa's enhanced suit allowed her to keep up with Echo's natural ability to navigate the cave system. The bio-organic modifications had also improved her strength and endurance significantly. As they went deeper, the caves became more obviously artificial. The walls were too smooth and regular to be natural, and Lisa could see patterns carved into the stone that were clearly decorative rather than functional. This was a city, Lisa said in amazement as they entered a huge underground space. The chamber was enormous, easily large enough to hold several city blocks. The ceiling was so high that Lisa's lights could not reach it. But most amazing were the structures that filled the space. Buildings rose from the cave floor like giant mushrooms or coral formations. They were clearly artificial, but they looked like they had grown rather than been built. Curved walls flowed into each other without sharp corners, and surfaces that might have been windows glowed softly with the same bioluminescent material Lisa had seen elsewhere in the caves. Echo moved through the ancient city with obvious emotion. Its sounds became softer and more complex, almost like singing. Lisa realized that Echo was remembering its home from before the wars and exile. "How long since anyone lived here?" Lisa asked. Echo's response indicated it had been many years, perhaps centuries. The city had been abandoned when the wars made the surface too dangerous and resources too scarce to maintain the underground settlements. They spent hours exploring the ancient structures. Most were empty, but some contained remnants of Echo's people's incredible technology. Lisa found devices that seemed to grow their own power sources, materials that could change their properties based on need, and systems that maintained themselves without any outside input. But the most important discovery came when they reached what appeared to be the city's central hub. In a large circular chamber, Lisa and Echo found a device that was still working after all these years. The device looked like a combination of organic growth and sophisticated machinery. Vines and crystalline structures intertwined around metal components, creating something that pulsed with slow, steady rhythms. The entire system glowed with soft, changing colors. "What does it do?" Lisa asked. Echo's explanation took several minutes of sounds, gestures, and drawings on the chamber walls. As Lisa gradually understood, her excitement grew. The device was a planetary monitoring system. It could detect and analyze conditions anywhere on the planet's surface or in its underground systems. More importantly, it could communicate with similar devices on other worlds. You mean this can send messages to other planets? Lisa asked, hardly believing what she was learning. Echo confirmed this with enthusiastic sounds. The device had been used by Echo's people to stay in contact with their colonies and trade partners on distant worlds. It might still be able to reach some of those civilizations. But Echo also explained something that made Lisa's heart race with a different kind of excitement. The device could detect artificial objects in space around the planet. Objects like spaceships. Lisa immediately understood the implications. Her former crewmates might return to this planet someday. Other human ships might come to explore or establish research stations. With this device, she would know about them long before they knew about her. "Can you teach me how to use it?" Lisa asked. Echo's response was positive, but it also indicated that operating the device would require modifications to Lisa's body and equipment. The biotechnology responded to biological signals that humans did not naturally produce. This led to a conversation that would change Lisa's life forever. Echo explained that its people had learned to modify themselves to work better with their living technology. They could enhance their bodies with organic improvements that made them stronger, smarter, and more capable. Echo could teach Lisa how to make similar modifications to herself. The process would be gradual and safe, using materials and techniques that Echo's people had perfected over thousands of years. Lisa would become something more than human, but she would still be herself. She would be faster, stronger, and able to interface directly with the advanced biotechnology they were discovering. "Would I still be me?" Lisa asked. Echo's response was complex, but reassuring. The modifications enhanced what someone already was, rather than changing their fundamental nature. Lisa would still think like Lisa, but she would be able to do things no unmodified human could do. Lisa thought about this offer for a long time. Accepting would mean crossing a line that no human had ever crossed before. She would become something new, something that her former crewmates might not even recognize as human. But Lisa remembered watching the shuttle fly away and leave her to die. She remembered the weeks of struggle just to survive each day. She thought about the incredible partnership she had built with Echo and the amazing discoveries they were making together. Her decision was not difficult. "Yes," Lisa said. "Teach." Harshly over the following days, Echo began the process of modifying Lisa's body and equipment. The changes were subtle at first. Improvements to her immune system, enhancements to her healing abilities, modifications that let her process the planet's unusual atmosphere more efficiently. But as the modifications progressed, Lisa began to understand how profound the changes would be. Her reflexes became faster, her thinking became clearer, and she began to sense things about her environment that she had never noticed before. Most importantly, she began to develop a direct connection to the biotechnology around her. She could feel the pulse of the monitoring device, sense the health of the organic systems in their enhanced equipment, and communicate with Echo in ways that went beyond sounds and gestures. Lisa was becoming something new. She was still human in her thoughts and feelings, but her capabilities were expanding beyond human limits. She was becoming a bridge between two different approaches to existence: human ingenuity and alien bio-integration. As she lay in her shelter one night, feeling the changes working through her body, Lisa thought about her former crewmates. They had seen her as disposable, someone who could be abandoned when things got difficult. They had no idea what they had created by leaving her behind. Lisa Grant stood in the ancient monitoring chamber, her enhanced senses detecting the approaching ships long before they appeared on any human scanner. The biotechnology flowing through her body had changed her in ways that still amazed her. Even after 6 months of gradual transformation, her skin now had a subtle shimmer that helped regulate temperature and heal injuries automatically. Her eyes could see clearly in almost complete darkness, and her reflexes were 3 times faster than any normal human. Most importantly, she could interface directly with Echo's people's living technology, controlling complex systems with thought alone. 3 ships, Lisa said to Echo, who was connected to the monitoring system through organic cables that had grown from its body. the UES Frontier and two smaller vessels. They are setting up orbital stations. Echo's response was a mixture of curiosity and concern. Through their enhanced connection, Lisa could feel Echo's emotions as clearly as her own. Her friend was worried about what the returning humans might mean for their peaceful existence. Lisa was not worried. She was ready. The modifications to her body were complete, and she had spent months learning to use abilities that no human had ever possessed. She could survive in the planet's natural atmosphere without a suit. Her strength was enhanced enough to move rocks that would have required machinery before, and her connection to the biotechnology network gave her awareness of everything happening in the vast cave system. More importantly, Lisa and Echo had not been idle during the past months. They had restored much of the ancient city's technology and created new systems that combined human engineering with alien biointegration. The underground realm was now a functioning base that could support life indefinitely. They are sending shuttles to the surface, Lisa reported, reading the information, flowing through the monitoring system. Same landing site where they left me. Echo made a questioning sound. Lisa understood the question without needing translation. Did she want to contact the humans, or should they remain hidden? Lisa's answer was immediate. We wait. We watch. We learn who they really are. The shuttles landed at the site where Lisa had been abandoned 8 months ago. Through the monitoring system, she could watch the humans as they set up their equipment and began exploring the area. Lisa recognized some of the faces. Captain Martinez was still in command, and she could see Dr. Foster, pilot Jake Roberts, and several others who had been part of the original crew. But there were also new people, scientists and engineers who had come to establish a permanent research station. Lisa listened to their radio communications through the monitoring system. The conversations revealed exactly what she had expected. The crew had reported her death, and the official records showed that Lisa Grant had died in the avalanche during the original mission. No sign of the original crash site, Dr. Foster was saying over the radio. The avalanche changed the whole landscape. We will never find any trace of Grant's body. Poor Lisa, said a voice Lisa recognized as Jake Roberts. She was a good engineer. Too bad she was in the wrong place when the earthquake hit. Lisa felt Echo's anger through their connection. Her friend understood enough human language now to know what the returning crew was saying. They were acting as if Lisa's death had been unavoidable, as if they had not made the choice to leave her behind. But Lisa was not angry. She was calculating. Over the following days, Lisa watched the humans establish their base. She learned their routines, their strengths, and their weaknesses. She saw which crew members showed concern for safety and which ones took unnecessary risks. She observed who worked well with others and who complained when things got difficult. Most importantly, Lisa watched how they reacted when problems arose. On the 4th day, a severe storm hit the area. The humans had to take shelter in their temporary buildings while winds and electrical activity made the surface dangerous. Lisa could see through the monitoring system that their power generator was failing and their communications were being disrupted by the storm. Several crew members wanted to go outside to fix the problems, but Captain Martinez ordered them to wait until the storm passed. Lisa could hear the fear in his voice as he made the decision. He was afraid of losing more people, afraid of making another mistake like the one that had supposedly killed Lisa. But engineer Carl Johnson and scientist Rita Adams were not willing to wait. They argued that the failing systems could lead to life support problems if not fixed immediately. Against orders, they left the shelter to repair the generator. Lisa watched through the monitoring system as the two humans struggled in the dangerous conditions. The storm was worse than they had expected, and their equipment was not designed for the extreme weather. Carl Johnson was struck by debris blown by the wind and fell unconscious near the generator. Rita Adams tried to drag him back to shelter, but she was not strong enough to move him quickly in the storm conditions. Lisa made her decision. She left the safety of the underground city and moved toward the surface. Echo followed her, moving through the cave system with the speed and grace that had been enhanced by months of biotechnological improvements. Lisa emerged from the caves near the human base, just as Rita Adams was giving up hope of saving Carl Johnson. The storm was getting worse and she could not move the unconscious man by herself. Through the storm, Rita saw a figure approaching. At first, she thought it was another crew member coming to help. But as the figure got closer, Rita realized she was seeing something impossible. The person walking toward her through the deadly storm was not wearing an environmental suit. The figure moved with impossible grace and speed, unaffected by winds that were knocking Rita off her feet. Lisa reached the fallen engineer and lifted him easily, her enhanced strength making his weight insignificant. She carried Carl Johnson toward the shelter with Rita Adams following in amazement. "Who are you?" Rita shouted over the storm. "How are you surviving out here without protection?" Lisa looked at Rita through the storm and spoke for the first time to another human in 8 months. "I am someone who was left behind." Before Rita could respond, Lisa disappeared back into the storm, leaving the unconscious engineer safely near the shelter entrance. When the storm ended and Carl Johnson regained consciousness, he and Rita Adams told the rest of the crew what had happened. They described a mysterious figure who had saved them, someone who could survive the planet's deadly conditions without protection. Captain Martinez dismissed their story as hallucinations caused by stress and lack of oxygen. But Dr. Foster was more curious. She began reviewing the base's sensor records from during the storm. The sensors had detected something unusual during the rescue. There had been 2 large heat signatures moving near the base during the storm, but they had not looked like human body heat patterns. "There is something out there," Dr. Foster told the captain. "Something we do not understand." Over the following days, Lisa continued to watch the human base. She saw how different crew members reacted to the mystery. Some were curious and wanted to investigate. Others were afraid and wanted to leave the planet immediately. But Lisa also saw something else. She saw how the crew treated each other when they thought no one was watching. She learned which ones would help a teammate in trouble and which ones would look out only for themselves. She was testing them, just as they had once tested her. On the 7th day, Lisa decided it was time to reveal herself completely. She had learned everything she needed to know about these humans. Some of them deserved her mercy, and some did not. Lisa walked openly toward the human base in the middle of the day, with Echo moving alongside her. She wore no environmental suit, and her enhanced body showed no sign of stress from the planet's hostile conditions. The humans saw her coming long before she reached their base. By the time Lisa arrived at the perimeter, the entire crew was waiting for her, their weapons ready but their hands shaking. Lisa stopped 10 meters from the group and looked at each face. She recognized them all, but she knew they did not recognize her. The biotechnological enhancements had changed her appearance enough that she looked like a stranger to them. "You left me here to die," Lisa said, her voice carrying clearly across the distance between them. "You reported me dead and moved on with your lives." Captain Martinez stepped forward, his face pale with shock. "Lisa? Lisa Grant? But that is impossible. You died in the avalanche." "I survived," Lisa said simply. "I found a way to live on this world that you thought was only death." Lisa gestured to Echo, who moved closer to her side. The crew gasped and raised their weapons as they saw the enormous alien creature, but Lisa's calm presence kept them from firing. "This is Echo," Lisa said. "It was also abandoned by its people, left to die alone. We found each other and we built something better than either of our species had achieved alone." Dr. Foster lowered her weapon and stepped forward. "Lisa, what happened to you? You look different. How did you survive?" Lisa smiled, and for the first time in months, she felt something like her old self. "I learned that being abandoned does not mean being defeated. I learned that cooperation is stronger than conflict. And I learned that humans are capable of becoming much more than we ever imagined." She looked directly at Captain Martinez. "You left me behind because you thought I was expendable. You were wrong."